Hi, my name is Sam and welcome to my YouTube channel. I know ASMR is supposed to help you relax and fall asleep, but today I have to tell you about my disastrous holiday in Malta. So this video might end up putting a smile on your face. As you can see, I'm smiling. So nothing life-threatening happened. It was just a relentless sequence of things that went logistically wrong, and I was going to make a video on my holiday anyway, but I had never thought that this would be the spirit of the video. So I went to Malta for the first time in September, and I loved it. I know not many people like Malta. I found it beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it is boring, so I wouldn't live there. But in terms of landscapes, I loved it. Orange and yellow are my favourite colours, and most of the buildings are those two colours, so that alone is me sold. I loved Valletta mainly because of that and how beautiful the buildings are. There are a few other areas that I really liked in terms of beaches, but I am not a beach holiday maker, so I like looking at beaches and admiring how beautiful they are, but I would not spend a whole holiday lying on the beach. Most of the people that go to Malta and then Gozo and Camino, which are its sister islands, they go there for that because the beaches are beautiful, but I just like to walk around and then relax every now and then. So I loved Malta the first time, even though I was exhausted because I did a gay cruise beforehand, and it was great, but there was a lot of parties and a lot of entertainment going on. So I got off the ship and I was just a husk of a man, and I made the mistake of going to Malta straight away. So time-wise it was perfect because I got off the ship the day before Europride started in Malta. So when I got off in Rome, I then took a plane that took me to Malta, which I thought was a great idea, but I had underestimated how tired I would be. By first world problems, I assume. And then thanks to Instagram, I found out that at the end of April they always do an international fireworks competition. I love fireworks, and I know that in Malta it's very typical to have fireworks all year round, so the local people are fed up with them. It's nothing special to them, but I love fireworks, and I thought it was a great idea. So I wanted to go, and I also wanted to take my mum. She likes fireworks too, and we don't get to spend much time together because I live in London and she lives in Italy. So I thought that would be the perfect occasion to meet. The festival stretches over a period of 10 days, and although I knew that it would be at the end of April, they only released the official dates at the end of February or beginning of March, which I didn't find very clever because people need to organise their trip to Malta, but we made it happen. And The official festival, I think, was from the 20th of April to the 30th of April, or rather it was supposed to be. Key word, supposed to be. So I came back yesterday. Today here is the 1st of May, and for you, when you watch this, a week will already have gone by. And I'll tell you how and why I came back yesterday instead of today. I should have come back today. I think they had an opening ceremony on the 13th of April, but then the official festival started on the 20th, if I'm not mistaken. And they had different themes for the parties, for the competition, sorry. And they didn't have a show every single evening, but they had like 8, I think, all over Malta and Gozo as well. So if you wanted to follow the competition, you have to travel to different locations within the islands. My mum is a teacher, so she can't take any extra time off, but luckily the 25th of April is bank holiday in Italy, and this year it fell on a Thursday, and in Italy they have what Europeans call a bridge. So if you have a bank holiday on a Thursday, which is very close to the weekend, chances are the government or the private company that you work for will allow you to be off on Friday as well, so you can get a long 4-day weekend. And that was the case this year with my mum. She was off from Thursday the 25th to Sunday the 28th, which was perfect. The final was supposed to be on the 30th, so she would have missed it anyway, but we could have got a good 4 days out of it. So that was a plan. We would meet in Malta on Thursday. I flew from London and she flew from Italy, and then she left on Sunday the 28th, and I was supposed to stay until Wednesday the 1st in the morning. So my flight was at 5 a.m. so I could watch the finale of the competition and spend a few days on my own. Now that was a plan, and most of it did happen. So we did go to Malta from the 25th to the 28th. We were together, but that already was a problem. Now this is, it is my fault, but something like this had never happened to me before. On the 25th, my flight from London was at 4:30 p.m. and I was scheduled to arrive at 8ish, I think, and then my mum, she had a later flight from Italy, so her flight was at like 10 p.m. and she was supposed to land at 1 a.m, something like that. Now, I live fairly close to Stansted, the airport that I flew from, and because I only ever travel with my hand luggage, I don't need to go there too much in advance. And usually what happens is, because I'm always worried that I might miss my flight, I always go there too early, and I always end up waiting in the waiting area for a long time. So this time I thought I would get into the airport an hour before my flight was supposed to leave. Now that's where the problems started. There wasn't a very long queue for the security check. The problem was that not many desks were open. So although there weren't many of us, it really took a long time for us to get through security, to the point where I basically realised that I was going to miss my flight. The queue was going so slowly. I started panicking. I started pacing up and down. I couldn't really do much. And when it got to like 4 o'clock, so like 35 minutes before my flight, I asked a few of the people in front of me if I could jump the queue, just because my flight was really, well, imminent. They did let me through, which was great, but then the problem was that at the security check, because many people forgot to remove their liquids and stuff like that from their bags, we were stuck there. So there were so many bags that needed to be checked after the metal detector that there was a backlog of trays that couldn't even be scanned, because there were so many that had so much stuff that was not allowed on the plane. So once I did get to the security check, I thought that would be it. I thought I would, make it. But I soon realised that that may not be the case, because again, the security check was going very, very slowly. Again, I was panicking. I didn't know what to do. But I think at 4:15, I managed to get through security, and I started running for my life to get to the gate. Now, the airport is fairly big, so I was just running for my life, and I couldn't even breathe anymore. I was exhausted, and also my main worry was my mum, because my mum does not speak a word of English, and obviously if I missed the flight, that meant that she would get to Malta and be on her own for a night. So I would have to tell her not to even board the plane, and obviously there was money involved that we would have lost. And Stansted is so big that there are different gates that you can get to. There are a few gates that you can simply walk to. Other gates you need to get on a shuttle that takes you to these gates, and obviously I had to get a shuttle, meaning that I had to wait 2 minutes for the shuttle to come along, and then the journey was, 5 minutes. While I was on the shuttle, I really realised that I was going to miss my flight, and again I started panicking. I didn't know what to do with myself. I kept moving and pacing up and down. I didn't know what to tell my mum. I was in tears, and then when I got off the shuttle, I just ran. I think at that point it was like 4:20, so 15 minutes before the plane was supposed to take off, and I'd never cut it that close, but I assumed, and still assume, that they would have closed the gate by then. So I was running for my life. I was ready to beg the staff to let me on the plane, telling them about my mum. I'm an actor. I could have cried a bit and faked it, but there was no faking needed, because I would have burst into tears naturally. When I got to the gate, the queue was massive, and then I realised that they hadn't even started boarding yet. So I remember looking at one of the girls standing in the queue and asking her if she was going to Malta, because I wanted to double check, and she went, yeah. And I just went, and you're still queuing? And I was so, desperate, because I'd run so fast, but also relieved, because if the flight hadn't been delayed, I would have missed it. But it was delayed by, I would say, 30-40 minutes. So when I got there, no one had even boarded yet, because the plane hadn't even arrived yet. So at first I can't believe that I felt frustration for the fact that I'd run for nothing. But then after a little bit, relief kicked in, because I knew that, I realised that I could actually make it to Malta, I did not have to cancel anything. I did not have to tell my mum not to board the plane. I got to Malta more or less in one piece. Then I took a cab to go to my flat. It was a house actually, and then I took another cab to go and pick up my mum, because the cab was like 4 hours. There was no point in me waiting at the airport. And now, in September, when I went to Malta, I met a guy and I spent a bit of time with him, and I asked him, well, before going to Malta, I asked him what the weather was like, because I know that Malta is hot, and he said that Malta, the weather was getting hotter, not unbearably so, but hotter. So I was ready for summer weather. I only had one pair of long trousers and a long sleeved top, because it was very cold here in England, but other than that I had summer clothes. When I got there, it was freezing. So that was another one of the logistical things that went wrong. It was abnormally cold. It was basically winter, and not only that, but the wind was insane. But neither one of us, me and my mum, were equipped for it, because we thought we would go into basically a summer holiday. So I had to wear my mum's pyjamas underneath my clothes, and I had to have my coat, which was not my thick winter coat. It was my sort of autumn coat, when I would have needed my winter coat. So that as well was just unpleasant, to say the very least. Then, because of the wind and because of how unexpectedly bad the weather was, some of the fireworks shows were moved, postponed, or brought forward. Now, because my mum was only there for 3 days effectively, we knew that she could only watch 2 shows, on the Friday and one on the Saturday. So on Friday it was in a town in Malta. So we just, during the day we went sightseeing, because she'd never been to Malta, and then towards the evening we made our way to this city. Now, because the competition had already started by the Friday that we got there, on the Instagram pages of the fireworks competition and also of Malta, they had been posting videos of how beautiful these fireworks had already been up until that point. So we had great expectations. Now, the theme of the night that we went to was ground fireworks. Up until that point, I hadn't actually realised that there was a theme, and I didn't know what that meant. I just thought it was a technical term that we as civilians did not need to know. But the fireworks were terrible. They were so ugly and underwhelming. They were indeed ground fireworks. Now, I had never seen anything like that, and I am not saying I could have done it better. I mean, on a technical and scientific level, as a mathematician, it was great to see that actually happens. But they were not in the sky. They were on the ground. Basically, there were like 12 of them, because there were 12 teams, around 12, and each team had what looked like a windmill, like a paper, like a humongous paper windmill. And when they set fire to these windmills, then the show started, and most of these windmills obviously would spin, making releasing different colours and different patterns. Bits would move in and out, and again the science and the physics behind it is insane. But was it pretty and beautiful? No, it was so boring and underwhelming. And the day after, I saw some pictures that the official pages had posted of that event, and I can tell you that their photographers are good, because even though I was there and I knew how ugly they'd been from the pictures, I would have said they were amazing. So it's incredible what technology can do and what Photoshop can do. It was extremely underwhelming. We were absolutely deflated, but we were still happy that me and my mum were together. So that happened. It was an experience. Then the day after, the fireworks on the Saturday, the fireworks were supposed to be in Gozo, the sister island, and there are all sorts of ferries and boats that you can take to go from Malta to Gozo. Valletta, which is the capital, is fairly far from Gozo, but there is a direct, speedy ferry that takes you from Valletta to Gozo, and because we were staying in Valletta, that's what we took. And my plan was to then spend the night in the town where the fireworks were being held, called Nador, and then the plan was to then go back to Malta on Sunday, because my mum had a flight at 1:40 p.m. So the plan was to take a very early ferry to have plenty of time to go to the airport and do all of that. Now, because of the wind and because of the storms, sometimes they have to stop small ferries and small boats from sailing between the two islands, because it's dangerous. But because they hadn't, the website hadn't released anything, we just took the ferry and it was okay to go to Gozo. Now we got to Gozo, and I'd been there before, and I remembered not being thrilled, in the sense that once you've seen Malta, based on what I then saw of Gozo, you've already seen it. And my mum wanted to take one of those sightseeing buses, and we took it, and it was so boring. There is absolutely nothing to see in Gozo. It's just so boring, and I was mortified, because my mum had paid good money to be there, and for the whole holiday. Her flights were insanely expensive. Mine weren't, from London, luckily, and I was just so deflated that she wasn't getting much out of this experience. But again, she never really travels, so it was a good enough experience for her, and also we got to spend time together. But we had a different room, obviously, because we were in Gozo now, in this town called Nador, which was a ghost town. There was absolutely nothing and no one. Actually, there were a few restaurants and shops, but they were all closed. It was full of cars, so people clearly lived there, but there was no one around. And our flat was very different from what I remembered from booking.com. So from what I remembered, we were going to be alone in this flat with obviously a private bathroom, and from the pictures I could tell that it looked very rustic, almost like from medieval, which I liked. It was very, very bizarre in a very interesting way. Then we got there, and first of all I thought again that it was just going to be me and my mum and no one else, but they told us that there were 2 other rooms. Luckily they were empty that night, but that was not the situation that I was expecting to be in, but I might have misread the description on the website. But again, that really shocked me a little bit. I don't mind sharing like Airbnb style, but I was not ready for it. But again, luckily we were alone. The bathroom was insane. It was amazing, but we had to go up 2 flights of stairs to get there, which my mum was not very happy by. But then it looked interesting, and again, dating back to the Middle Ages and all of that, but it was actually quite scary. And the problem was that the wind was so relentlessly strong that something upstairs kept banging constantly, like poof, 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 poof. So it really felt, first of all, like someone was in the house. Although the guy had told us that we were alone, we did think someone else was there. And also it's just gave the whole house this sort of haunted house kind of feel, and it got to the point where it wasn't even funny anymore. So I would have, we slept there obviously, and I only managed to do that because I was with my mum, but if I had been alone I would have gone somewhere else because it was scary. And again, this constant banging of something upstairs because of the wind was, it wasn't unpleasant in terms of noise. It didn't keep us up at night, also because from the room I couldn't really hear it, but everywhere else we could, and it was just scary. It was creepy, very, very creepy, in a not a funny way. So that also was a problem. And then the fireworks. They were so boring again, so uninspiring. There was nothing special to them. It was freezing cold. The wind was just relentless. So that was bad. It was just a bad situation again. Again, I was mortified because I couldn't deliver for my mum. But she was okay with it, and we spent time together. And then on Sunday morning we woke up as we planned, just to be nice and early to get the ferry, the same fast ferry from Gozo to Valletta, which is closer to the airport. Otherwise you can get another boat to the town closest to Gozo, but it's fairly far from the airport. So we got to the port early. We were having breakfast, and then I kept checking the dock to see when the ferry would come. We knew that we were supposed to set sail at 10 a.m, getting into Valletta at 10:45, but obviously I wanted to, you need time to board the ferry because it's big, so I wanted to make sure that we wouldn't miss it. And then I kept checking and going back and forth, and at one point I randomly noticed 2 A4s, 2 very small A4s, saying that because of the extremely intense wind and how choppy and stormy the sea was, all the ferries had been cancelled for the day. Now, as I said, my mum is a teacher, so she can't miss work. On Monday she had to be back in school. The flight on Sunday to go from Malta back to Bologna in Italy cost her like £140, which is insane. And when I read that notice board, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I didn't even know what to feel. I just froze because I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I was rooted to the spot, and I couldn't really process what was happening. So I asked the guy in the cafe, and just to confirm, and he said yes, all these the high-speed ferries have been cancelled, but you can take the huge boat right behind you that takes you to the city closest, the city in Malta closest to Gozo. And it wasn't a boat; it was a huge ship. So I didn't panic too much because I knew now that there was a solution, because the reason why I panicked in the first place was that I thought we would be stuck on that island for the whole day, meaning that, well, we had no accommodation. It would have been very boring, but primarily my mum would miss her flight and she had to go back home to go to work on Monday. But then when I realised that that was not going to be the case, we would make our way to Malta, I was relieved. And by that point, both of us, I mean, I'd had enough of all the logistical things that had gone wrong already. And you just wait. So we got on the ship, and then we took a cab, which took almost an hour from where we were to the airport, instead of the 7 minutes that it would have taken from Valletta to the airport. But first world problems, we made it. Then she got on the plane and I sent her off, and her getting on the plane was the successful part of the trip. Then I was supposed to stay in St. Julian's, which is another city, not Valletta. So I stayed there, and so I made my way there. And so I was supposed to be basically on my own Sunday afternoon and evening, Monday, Tuesday, and then coming back on Wednesday morning. And I hadn't booked the night between Tuesday and Wednesday because the flight was at 5 a.m. in the morning, so there was no point in wasting money on a room. I was planning to stay out the whole night because on the 30th, which was the Tuesday, the finale of the competition should have taken place in Valletta, so my plan was to spend the whole day out, then go to Valletta, and then go to the airport. Now the problem was that because I'd already seen Malta and the weather was so terrible, I was dreading being on my own, because I was going to get bored because there was nothing to do, nowhere to go. And I couldn't even just sit outside reading a book because of the weather. But luckily, the minute my mum left, the weather did get better, so it was warmer and less windy. Still not pleasant enough to just read a book outside, but more bearable, so that was a plus. And, well, the only positive thing of the trip. And then, yes, I didn't really know what to do with myself, but I was hanging on to the fact that I was going to see the final part of the competition, which I think was supposed to be held on the water. So I was really looking forward to it, although my expectations were at that point already a little bit lower than they were before the trip started. And then on Monday, actually, I had a very pleasant day. I went sightseeing. I went to parts of the island that I hadn't seen in September. And then randomly, I was talking to a guy on Grindr who told me that the finale had been postponed to Friday, the 3rd of May, because of the wind. But I told him that nothing had been said or announced on the website, so maybe he was mistaken. So that was the Monday, and just out of curiosity, no, that was the Sunday, sorry. And just because I was worried that I would get bored over the holiday, I just kept checking flights to come back home earlier, potentially on Tuesday morning, and I found a flight for £13. So I thought, if I really get bored and if I can't bring myself to stick it out until the finale on Tuesday evening, I can always take this very, very, very cheap flight on Tuesday morning. I mean, I was so fed up with the holiday at that point already that I was considering cutting it short. And then this guy said this thing about the finale being moved, but because, again, there was no official statement about it, I just kept minding my own business until Monday morning, when I woke up and I found out that because of the wind, the finale had indeed been postponed and pushed back to the 3rd of May, meaning that I was going to miss it because I was always going to come back on the Wednesday. And at that point, that was just a bit too much. That was the straw, the last straw for me, because I had nothing to look forward to. Then on Tuesday, I would have been without a room for the whole day, and I was prepared to do that. But if I'd had something to, look forward to, that would have been okay. But because I would have just had to, wander around aimlessly with a bag on me, I just couldn't take it. I mean, it was just too much. Too many things had gone wrong, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So after much deliberation and after checking different flights, that's when I realised that the £13 flight that I'd originally set my eyes on had now gone up to £100. So again, I thought, okay, now I'm stuck here, and I can't justify spending so much money on an extra flight. I mean, this is just a first world problem. I will survive one day in Malta. But then I checked other flights, and I couldn't do it to myself, so I decided to book an early flight on Tuesday morning, and I came back a day earlier. I was done, absolutely done. It had never happened to me before, but mentally, that holiday just went wrong on so many levels, and I just wanted to come back home and work on my ASMR and do other things. So yes, again, nothing life-changing happened, but it was just constant disappointment and things going wrong. So on that note, I will let you go. Let me know if you've been to Malta before, if you liked it, and if you are in Malta for the finale, let me know if it was good, because obviously I will miss it. And yes, I will let you go, and I will see you soon.